it's really important that we begin to look at how we approach situations in which we feel profoundly uncomfortable. I want to talk about this because in the last couple of years, some profoundly uncomfortable things have happened to me, and I feel like I have hit upon some universality that I'd like to share with you. So, I think Tony was right when he said that we need to change something profound about our society. And I would argue that we're really at a turning point. I think that we know that something significant needs to change, but we haven't quite constructed a new paradigm. We haven't quite begun to develop new language with which to express ourselves. And so what I'd like to do is, open a dialogue, continue along the lines that Tony and the other speakers began, and begin to construct a new paradigm into which we can all live and raise our children. So we've been taught that reactivity and proactivity are opposites. So like if I get fired, reactivity is like punching my boss in the face, and proactivity is like immediately going out and making new business cards. But I would argue that reactivity and proactivity are actually two sides of the same coin. In both cases, what's going on for me is that I'm experiencing discomfort, and I'm going to change my circumstances until I don't experience discomfort anymore. I am going to get rid of the thing that I don't like, or get the thing that I want to make myself comfortable. Now, human beings have been operating on the basis of seeking external relief for discomfort like our entire history. I mean, we kill people that we disagree with ideologically. We abuse the resources of the planet because it's convenient. If we're being subjugated in our country, we get on a boat and we go to another country and subjugate the people there. We are addicted to this way of approaching discomfort. The only problem with this paradigm is that we will eventually find ourselves in a situation, the circumstances of which we cannot change. So what do we do with our discomfort then? I propose that there is a third way of being that sort of transcends both reactivity and proactivity. I'd like to call it receptivity. In my definition, receptivity is the act of embracing discomfort with the intention of understanding it without trying to change it. Where proactivity and reactivity apply force, resist, receptivity creates a space into which inspiration, creativity, new ideas can arise organically to create resolution. I don't think there's anyone in this audience who wouldn't prefer inspired action over a forced solution. But let's get real for a minute with how good our society is about choosing receptivity. Half of us who get married get divorced. Now, I am not saying that divorce is always undertaken in reactive energy. I'm also not saying that it's right or wrong. But I think that if we are really honest with ourselves, divorce is a very profound and painful example of our unwillingness to be vulnerable, of our need to be right, of our resistance to empathy and honesty, and of our desire to seek, sometimes immediate, external relief for the problem of an unhappy marriage. We can't be with the pain, with our partners, and so we just want to get out. I think we feel this need to escape often. If you look at the suicide rate, in 2010, more Americans died of suicide than died in car accidents. 8 million adults seriously contemplated suicide. That's 4% of the population. But one of the most interesting examples, I think, of our reactivity bias, our bias toward reactivity, our addiction to reactivity, is seen in the healthcare industry. It appears to me, as a consumer, that the healthcare industry is pretty much founded on relief of discomfort. I mean, if you go into Walgreens and you look at the shelves, do painkillers heal us? Do insulin injections cure diabetes? Does an inhaler cure asthma? What about statins and beta blockers and antihistamines? How much of that stuff is curative at all? We opt for surgery for chronic conditions, like in record numbers. We remove the thyroid and hypothyroidism, we remove whatever body part you have cancer in. Sometimes we even opt to undergo the knife just to remove the daily discomfort of having to look at a body part that we don't like. I'm not suggesting that relieving discomfort is a bad thing, and surgery does save lives in a lot of cases, but at some point, thanks. Yeah. What was I saying? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, we're talking about surgery for chronic conditions. And I was saying that at some point, I feel like we started with the Enlightenment and we're really interested in the scientific method. But we're at this place now where I observe that we've gotten really lazy about causation, both sociopolitically and in the healthcare industry and in our own lives. It's like causation is no longer important, and in my humble opinion, causation is like the way to solve a problem. You have to go to the cause. We have such a deep addiction to reactivity that we've begun to confuse the alleviation of the discomfort of a problem with the actual solution to the problem. So I wanted to learn about receptivity, about real resolution. And I found some interesting answers by looking at the natural world. In fact, I proposed that to the same measure that we are biased toward reactivity, nature tends toward receptivity. If you look at the atomic level, for instance, like you can apply energy to matter in such a way that you can produce a change of state. If you can heat water and it will boil. Now, the water molecules don't resist that change of state. They're sort of unconsciously receptive. But you apply 1,000,000 times that amount of energy to matter, and you can provoke a nuclear reaction, and atoms do resist nuclear reactivity. In fact, if they didn't, conditions would never have been stable enough for life to develop. You can look at our DNA. DNA is capable of evolving slowly over time as part of like a natural adaptive process. DNA also has the capacity to mutate suddenly when provoked by a stimulus, and DNA has sort of inbuilt measures to prevent and correct sudden mutation. That kind of reactivity is not something nature wants to do. If you look at the weather, is another good example. We experience extreme weather about 5% of the time. It seems like more to us, especially on a day like today. But the other 95% of the time, billions of natural processes are harmonizing to like grow plants and cycle things through the atmosphere, break down dead things. Nature rarely, in sum total, manifests something catastrophic. So what I'd like to ask is, why don't we operate that way? Nature operates on the basis of receptive principles. Why don't we operate that way? I think it's because we're afraid. In 2010, I was diagnosed with a rare gynecological cancer. I was told that the only treatment for this was surgery, and probably multiple surgeries, because this cancer has a very high rate of recurrence. And the side effects of this surgery are disfigurement, sexual dysfunction, and the inability to bear children. I decided not to have surgery. And when I expressed this to my gynecologic oncologist at the time, she said, "You would really rather die than have surgery." I think that choosing receptivity is so hard for us because it feels like doing nothing. And we're profoundly afraid of doing nothing. We think that if we do nothing, the worst will happen. The fact is that we really don't know what would happen because culturally we choose reactivity so often that we don't actually ever allow anything to happen. I successfully avoided pain or escaped it or otherwise suppressed it for pretty much my entire life until I found myself with a disease that no one could cure and a partner whose leaving I could not prevent. Suddenly I realized that I could not make her stay and I couldn't make myself well, and my entire paradigm for coping with difficulty completely collapsed. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I had to embrace the discomfort. That moment of surrender, it's not just one moment, it's a lot of moments. It's happening right now. That moment of surrender is so challenging because it feels like losing. It feels like giving up. Our left brain, as the neuroscientist was talking about earlier in the TED.com talk, our left brain desperately wants to control the things that happen to us. And when we tell it, stop trying to control this, we feel like we're failing. It felt to me like closing the door forever on true love. It felt like choosing to die of cancer. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the first couple months of embracing my pain were excruciating. I thought that I would never feel normal ever again. But inevitably, I'm learning. The pain began to move. Every day that I surrendered a little bit more, my heart got a little bit bigger. And it's not like the pain went away, but it's like the containing space increased. So instead of my discomfort like pressing on the walls of my heart, it was like floating in my heart. And I could like pull it close and take a look at it. And in that examination, I am learning everything I have ever needed to know about myself. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I just sang to you in the middle of a TED Talk. And I sing all the time, I do, but not on a TED stage. Because receptivity is experiential. I'm about to tell you about things I learned about receptivity, but it is not the same. It does not create the conditions in the heart that produce that state. What I am learning in embracing my discomfort and choosing receptivity as response to my discomfort, to the things that I perceive as problematic in my life, is that I can trust nature's example. We think we're culturally so addicted to reactivity that our faith has almost completely atrophied. We have no basis on which to believe, on which to trust, that if we just let go, if we just get out of the way, natural solutions, real resolution, inspired action, new ideas, change in relationships and feelings will arise if we just let it. But the natural world tells us, look around you, every electron of everything is constantly in motion. The nature of the universe is change, and nature abhors a vacuum. Probably the most important thing I'm learning about myself is that the origin of my discomfort is not what I thought it was. In reactivity, we are constantly changing our external circumstances because we believe that the sources of our pain and our happiness are external. But in looking at myself, I've discovered that the things that I feel so wounded by are not outside of me, they're in me. I wasn't angry because my partner was leaving. I was angry because her leaving made me feel worthless, and I hated myself for feeling that way. I wasn't afraid of dying of cancer. I was afraid that having cancer meant that I was a failure. You don't need me to tell you that the sources of our pain and our happiness are internal. There's literally a mountain of evidence accumulating. Just go to TED.com and look up, happiness, human source. There's a mountain of evidence demonstrating that this is true, and yet we need to remind each other every day because it is so easy to forget. When I was first diagnosed, I spent a lot of time trying every anti-cancer diet I could find, I did all this alternative therapy. I was very proactive. What I'm doing now is I'm choosing to be happy. I am accepting my life and my circumstances and my body exactly the way that it is, without needing to change anything. I'm not resisting. I've decided I'm receiving. And the truth is, I have no idea if this is going to cure me of cancer. But the point is that if my focus is enacting external change, then my happiness is still not under my control. I still don't get it. I don't get to be the author of my own state of being, as long as I have to change something out here in order to be happy, in order to experience relief. Because regardless of what happens to my body, by choosing receptivity, I'm healing my heart. And the brilliant thing is that we can all do this, and you do not need a devastating illness or a divorce in order to begin to look at your life in this way. Look, I find some of what you teach suspect, because I'm used to relying on intellect, but I try to open up to what I don't know, because reason says I should have died 3 years ago. There's only us. Forget regret, or life is yours to miss. No other road, no other way, no day but today. I know you guys know that song, so why don't you sing that with me? Ready? There's only us. Are you guys gonna sing with me? There's only this. Forget regret, or life is yours to miss. No other road, no other way, no day but today.